and welcome inside the RxMuscle studios in Westbury, New York. This is the Iron Debate on RxTV on RxMuscle.com. This show is true to its name. No agreements, all disagreements, all out debate. Tonight we are joined from Portland, Maine. They call him the Technician. We are joined by Chris Aceto. Chris has been a favorite here on RxMuscle.com. He's been excellent, instrumental on our contest coverage, and he's going to be joining us here tonight. And then also from the Steel City, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Tad Inoue. You know him best as Tad the Diet Coach, here to impart some wisdom upon us. And joining me in studio here in the RxMuscle studios, we are joined by the founder of RxMuscle, Dave Palumbo. He's going to be here providing the final word. All right, so the name of the game is this. We are going to have 5 topics of debate. It is going to be all-out debate tonight between Chris, the Technician Aceto, and Tad, the Diet Coach. Dave is going to jump in with the final word. So let's start it off. The first topic for tonight. Does the men's division need another division? We have bodybuilding. We have physique. Women on the other side have bodybuilding, bikini, fitness, figure, women's physique. Does the men need to expand? We are going to start out tonight with Chris. Chris in Portland, Maine. Chris, your thoughts. Do the men need another division?
By virtue of looking at the men's physique division, if you go to a show these days, you sit down in the seats and you see 20 guys in the bodybuilding, and then you see 45 guys in the men's physique. So clearly, although maybe there was some resistance at the beginning to introduce in the men's physique class, it's been not only welcomed, it's just taking off. So a segue. Some of these guys are extremely impressive in the men's physique. They're like junior bodybuilders, and you go to a show at the Nationals when there's like 60 guys in a class. The guy who is not going to place in the top, let's say 7 or 8, he might have the physique where he can't do the bodybuilding, but he can do something in between. And I think Dave alluded to classic bodybuilding. So I think it's a natural way to open up the sport to broaden it out. And if you just look on the women's side, I thought bikini was ridiculous, a figure, because I'm a purist. I came from women's bodybuilding, men's bodybuilding. So these women's, the other division, so to speak, they've grown, they've been accepted, and now I enjoy them. So why not open it up for people who don't have the genetics and structure to attain the mass of Jay Cutler or Kai Green, but they don't want to run around in board shorts and just show their upper body. So I embrace it. I think it's a great idea, and I'd like to see it get done.
All right, so Chris is in favor of expanding the competition for men. Tad, you seem to disagree. Why shouldn't the men's side expand to other division brackets?
Well, there's, going to so many shows every year. I'm going to be purely selfish with this because, in my opinion, the shows are long enough. And if you introduce another division, if it would populate, it could really extend. It would force promoters to actually have to probably some of the shows to have to go to 2-day events, and that could be prohibitive. But more importantly, competitors, it might create some hazy sense of where do I fit, and I think and again, I'm coming at purely from the bodybuilding standpoint and from as an athlete myself, but coaching so many athletes in physique and a bikini and a figure. Women, there seems to be a bit more clear way to be able to position them into these different categories. Whereas for men, I think it might get a little gray area, and you have a lot of guys doing, crossing over into multiple classes. And I'm not really so sure if there's such a good division in criteria for developing another division that would be adequate for a new to have a new division for men's bodybuilding or men's classic bodybuilding or whatnot. I don't think there's enough criteria for that just to validate having a whole nother division. And then you can have pros, have pro qualifiers for that as well. And then I think it might just convolute some of the men's divisions a little bit.
All right, so Chris thinks that it could get a little hazy, and might get a little unorganized. Chris, we're going to go back over to you. Do you agree that if the men's side were to expand, if you were to have some more divisions, and you said it, that there seems to be a little bit more proliferation as far as body types and as far as fitting in, and for competitors to figure out where they want to go. Do you think that could get a little unorganized? Do you think there is a way to manage, even if it's a slow scaling process, to have new brackets?
I think it's an easy thing to do. I just think it's difficult if you decide that it's difficult. I think that the idea that the shows are already ridiculously long, I agree with Tad, but no one would have believed that a bodybuilding show called the Mr. Olympia would expand into a 2- and 3-day event. So there's never been any, caution or resistance in expanding the duration of these shows, even if it's like a national show. And two, it's still about the athlete and giving them opportunity. I think it's give the bodybuilder or give the men's fitness guy the opportunity to see what he can do, and he'll define what that class will look like. I mean, we didn't know what women's physique would look like until we really saw it. We didn't know what the bodies were going to look like. Same thing was with if you do like a men's classical bodybuilding, you're going to see some people very quickly define it for themselves as, okay, this is the look. Somebody who's not maybe crazy big structure, but it's got all the tie-ins. I think Dave said it best is, a teenager or a 21-year-old, a young Bob Paris type physique in men's classic bodybuilding may not only win that class, but may go on to be getting obtain more contracts than even the guy in the, Phil Heath, because it might have more appeal.
All right, so Chris is of the school of thought that in a way this could expand so that more athletes can get involved. Tad, we're going to go back over to you now. You seem to have a more purist perspective on this, as far as that it may become a little watered down, but Chris does bring up a good point in that, again, you're now going to expand the field so now more athletes can get involved in the sport. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that could definitely happen. I think that you have to watch out and that kind of logic really speaks to a more mature, letting the sport mature, letting that kind of division mature over maybe a couple of years. It took figure several years to mature to what it is today. The bikini, it took a couple of years as well. Physique, it took a couple of years. And so I think that if you have time to be able to do that, then yeah, I'm just unclear that some of the promoters would be able to warrant that kind of adding this kind of addition, especially if you have to go to a 2-day event. This is it turns into a money issue with promoters being able to afford venues for 2-day events. A lot of them have to cap it off and do 1-day events and things like that. So I just think that it could make the shows longer to a point where it could be prohibitive to making the show run smoothly. But at the same time, I still sort of lean back on the criteria for it would be a little hazy, a little bit more nebulous. And I think that it's more important to have very clear-cut criteria for, say, bodybuilding, physique, bikini, figure. These things seem to be well-defined now. And so having added a new division, you just really have to be able to define that really, really well. And I think it seems to be, it would be a little nebulous at this point. At least it is to me, the way it's been described.
All right, so Chris thinks there is room for growth within the men's side, whereas Tad thinks that it could get a little unorganized, a little hazy. Time for the final word, and for that, we go to Dave Palumbo.
Well, Chris and I have discussed this ad infinitum on the radio show, and I have one word: legs. Legs. There's no legs in men's physique. The guys can't train their leg, or they don't. Even if they train their legs, you can't really even see them. So I think there needs to be a division where at least they reward leg training. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be applauding when I say that. The truth is that when I see guys in this men's physique division that has just exploded all over the place, and I see them standing 40 deep in a lineup in 1 out of 6 classes, 30 of those guys are not happy, probably. Maybe 35 of those guys are not happy. And those guys need some place to go, and they may not have the most beautiful structure of a Jason Poston, a Siddique, a Hudzovic, and in reality, they're never going to be there. And the only way they can compensate would be to add more muscle to their frame. And, to address Tad's concern with there wouldn't be a defining, I guess you could say, it would be a blurry, I guess.
Hazy.
Hazy is the word he used. I think it would be definable. Use what they do in Europe for classic men's bodybuilding, which is, number one, for every inch that you are, for whatever your height is, you're limited by a certain weight. So there's the defining characteristics. If you're 5'10", you can only weigh 190 pounds or whatever the criteria is that they come up with. And you have to try to make your physique look aesthetically pleasing within those parameters with good conditioning, nice shape. And it'll allow you to hit poses on stage. So the guys who don't want to get as big as Jay Cutler but still want to be bodybuilders would have a place to go. I mean, the women have 5 divisions. I don't see there being anything wrong with 3 divisions, even though, and I agree with Tad 100%, I do not want to stay 1 minute longer in these shows. They're already way too long. Someone made a point of saying that the only question people are asking at these night shows, the finals, are when is it going to be over? And that's not a good sign. But unfortunately, fortunately, it's good for the sport. Unfortunately, it's not great for the people who got to hang out the whole time.
Well, that's going to do it for our first topic. Sticking with shows, sticking with contests, we now transition over to the Toronto Pro Show, which is going to happen this upcoming weekend, May 31st and June 1st. And one of the contestants that a lot of people are talking about, someone who's really started to make his mark lately, is Lionel Baiki. Finished 4th at the New York Pro Show. Finished 4th at the Arnold Classic in Brazil. And now here is the question. Tad, we're going to go to you first on this one. Is Lionel Baiki ready to win the Toronto Pro Show? There's a lot of hype leading into the show about him, about his training with Big Ramy. Is he ready to win this big show?
Well, I'm going to answer this question a little differently. Is he ready to win it? Yes, he's ready to win it. Will he win it? I have my personal favorites. I'm that says that probably Juan Morel is going to walk away or John De La Rosa, but I do like both of those guys quite a bit. And I'm kind of as a personal favorite, I'd like to see John come off with a win here and get to the Olympia this year. But can Lionel Baiki win the show? Absolutely, he can, and he has all the right characteristics and qualities in his physique, and he's definitely going to show up in shape. I know, I've seen him, and I talked to him at the New York Pro, and I know he was going to push down even harder, and he really felt extremely confident about going to the Toronto Pro, and I really think that probably there's a better than likelihood chance that he's going to walk away with that title. So all he's got to do really is to get, really, in my opinion, from previous shows, he sometimes lacks a little depth in his physique and lacks a little bit of thinness in his skin, and I think hopefully he can correct some of that. He's got an unbelievable structure and a really wonderful tiny little waist and nice billowy muscles. So he's got all the right qualities and traits that he needs to be able to walk away with this, and I think he can, and I think he probably will.
Well, Lionel Baiki, of course, we mentioned his 4th place finish at the New York Pro Show and at the Arnold Classic of Brazil. That all happening this year. Last year, he placed 3rd at the Dallas Europa. So Tad seems to think that he can win, is a little unsure if he will. Chris, the technician, we're going to go back over to you in Portland, Maine. Do you see Lionel Baiki breaking out this time and capping off an impressive 2014 and winning the Toronto Pro Show?
I don't think. I say he won't win and he can't win. I say the problem right now for Lionel is that at the New York he was already toast. Meaning, if you actually look at the difference between Brazil, where he was full, dense, and hard, and really the best he's ever been, and at the New York Pro, he was flat, watery, washed out, and that's the sign of a tired bodybuilder. And I guarantee that the prep between the New York Pro and now is probably a hard prep, but your body doesn't respond to a hard prep when you're already washed out. In other words, you progressively get worse. If he showed up in New York and he was gargantuan and blasting full and was holding some fat and water, then he could have, pushed his body hard down here for the Toronto, and he'd look outstanding. But by the time he got to New York, he was like a deflated balloon, and just the hard training and the hard diet is just going to deflate him and wash him out even worse.
So Chris has some strong thoughts about why Lionel Baiki can't win. Tad, we're going to go back over to you now. Again, you did show some glimmer of hope in Baiki that he can win. You don't think he will. But Chris rather has a little bit more of a stronger take. Think he's not going to win. He can't win. let's go back over to you. Give us some more positive thoughts as to why he could pull off a victory in Toronto.
Well, after working with a lot of athletes and knowing that feeling that Chris is talking about, and man, that's a good point, Chris. I have to admit, that's a good point. But after working with a lot of athletes and knowing that sign that you're talking about with that tired athlete, the one whose body has really just sort of had it for the season. I did not get that impression when I talked to him, and I know that feeling, I know that sensation, I know that is when I speak to an athlete, and especially at a show, and possibly get into a placement that was a little disappointing. He didn't mention that he was disappointed with this placement in New York, but he had to be a little bit disappointed. But I didn't get that impression that he was really done yet, that his body was quite in that position. He could possibly be, but I don't think so. I still think there's a little bit of magic left in Lionel's physique and in his body. And I think that he can pull a little bit of magic off here in Toronto if all the right pieces are in place. And again, this is a sport of comparison. So at the bottom line, he will do well if standing next to John or Juan or anybody else who's there, some of the tough competition that's going to show up there. It really depends on what he looks like when he's standing next to them. That's all that matters.
Well, Chris, Tad did bring up Juan Morel and John De La Rosa and did mention that this is a sport of comparison. Again, your thoughts are very strong as far as Lionel Baiki looking and feeling washed up. Do you also credit some of that to the tough competition that he's going to see up north?
No, I just think that some people's bodies can't hold, and Lionel has showed through his short career that he gets progressively worse. Me and Dave talked about this on the radio show. Show to show, he can't hold it, whereas Tony Freeman, it might take him, he gets better show to show. I just think that, I was really impressed with him in Brazil. I actually thought I would have been very comfortable with him winning Brazil. And when he showed up in New York, he just looked he just looked very tired. And when you take a very tired bodybuilder generally and you push them, they break. It's not like the fat in the water breaks and you all of a sudden get tighter. You just your body just gives up, and then you start pulling every lever you can possibly think of. Go into panic mode and. Thinking that you get confused. Is the water fat? Is the fat water? Are you flat? Are you full? You don't know where the hell the body is, just because that's what I see in his physique in New York, that it was tired. And we'll see in Toronto, but I'm not a betting man, but I'll bet that he doesn't win.
All right, so both Chris and Tad not in Lionel Baiki's corner in this. We're going to go back to Dave for the final word. Dave again mentioned he is training with Big Ramy, Henri Pierre. He has shown some flashes over the year. Chris and Tad do not think he's going to really make an impact in Toronto. What say you?
Well, here's the final statement. I know Dennis James has got Lionel on lockdown pretty much. He's got him locked in a room. I'm sure he's not letting him eat. He's keeping an eye on him. He's training him every day, probably overtraining him, like Chris said. Here's the problem. I think once they get to Toronto, I think Lionel's going to sneak out at night and hit the Dunkin' Donuts there, and it's going to be all over for him pretty much. And I don't think Lionel can hold it. I think Chris said it best. I think that his body is shot, and I think that they're pushing him harder, and sometimes that's not the best thing to do because the body just doesn't respond. When I saw the posing video, Lionel does look tighter, but he's very flat and depleted. And I don't know if he could be filled up. He kind of reminds me of Ruli Winkler 2 years ago when he was just doing show after show after show, and everyone said he's not hard enough, and he just got smaller and smaller and smaller, and he didn't get any better. And then he took a year off, and the next year we saw him, he was huge and like a different bodybuilder. So it might serve Lionel better to take some time off. But I have talked to Dennis James in the past, and Dennis says that Lionel does like to cheat. So who knows? It's a coin flip. If I was a betting guy, I wouldn't put my money on Lionel Baiki.
So Dave seems to think Dunkin' Donuts or Tim Hortons. Tim Hortons is good. Well, that's going to do for that topic. We're going to step aside, but when we come back, we're going to talk about Julia Malacarni, her aspirations for the upcoming Olympia, and then we're going to discuss Phil Heath. Where is he going? Or rather, Jay Cutler. Where does Jay Cutler go from here? What are his aspirations for this summer? And what are his aspirations for the future? That and Big Ramy. Does Big Ramy have what it takes to finally make his mark? Is this his time? We're going to discuss that and more. This is the Iron Debate, RxTV, RxMuscle.com.
Hi, I'm Andrea Holiday, and I'm an IFBB Women's Physique Pro, but I'm also a coach and a trainer. When clients come to me for advice, I make it my business to give them the most intelligent solutions to all their problems. And I base that information on each person's specific goals. As an elite level competitor, my goal is to gain high quality muscle while maintaining a lean, ripped physique. Species Nutrition's Isolate is the purest whey isolate on the market. It has no fat, no carbs, and it tastes outrageously great. My personal favorite is chocolate peanut butter. So next time you purchase the protein shake, remember, buy the best, buy Isolate.
We got a nice little care package from Quest Nutrition.
There better be some apple pie in this. I'm taking apple pie at all of them.
All right, what up? It's Gilbert Inoue Melendez, chilling with my Quest bar here. First and foremost, most importantly, they're delicious. But it's good to have a good protein bar before training. Gluten-free, you gotta love it. And it tastes good, and it feels like it's doing the trick. I listen to my body, and it says yes to this, so give it a shot.
They taste great. They're awesome. They allow me to feel like I have a little treat while I'm still eating real strict for my training camp and everything. So I'm super excited. Off the top of my head, I have to say the cinnamon roll, the apple pie, and probably the lemon. But I haven't had one yet that I don't like.
The Iron Debate from the RxMuscle Studios in Westbury, New York. We now move on to our next topic, Juliana Malaccarni. She's someone who has taken first at the New York Pro, at the Dallas Europa, so clearly she's on a hot streak. Can she win women's physique at the Olympia? We are going to start with Chris, the technician, Aceto. Chris, will Juliana win the women's physique at the Olympia?
Well, she can win. Unlike Lionel, who won't win and can't win, she can win. I mean, she has the ability to win. She has the physique. She has the higher. She has more muscle than many of the other competitors, and it's put together a lot better than the other competitors. She's toned it down a little bit since last year. She has better flow than many of the other competitors. What I mean by that is she's got the quads. She certainly got the glutes, which make a distinction between her and other people, namely the winner, who doesn't have Juliana's tush. She's got the delts and the triceps, the caps. You know what? This is why I think she has the body to win. Honestly, I had no idea who she was when I walked up to her in Brazil. I rarely go up to people and say, "Wow, you're special, you're incredible." And I saw this girl in a tank top and like tight shorts. And I said, I couldn't figure out if she was a bodybuilder or not a bodybuilder. And I just went up to her and said, "You look unbelievable." And, what really that encapsulates is that she looks really beautiful. She's got a lot of muscle, and she carries it really well. So to me, that's the template. That's a, perfect scenario of body parts and beauty or whatever you want to call it, femininity, that draws the distinction between her and the rest of the field. So I think she can win.
All right, we're going to go to Tad. Tad, Chris seems to be on the side of Juliana Malakharni winning the women's physique at the Olympia. Your take?
Well, I think that this is going to be Dana Lynn Bailey's show to lose. She's got so much momentum over this last year and a half or so, and she's just really encapsulated the women's physique sort of division in terms of what they seem to like. And she's very sellable, and she's very marketable, and she's doing a great job at promoting herself. And I think she has and from a physique standpoint, she's got a wonderful physique. Now, Juliana has a absolutely beautiful physique as well, but she's a lot more bodybuilder-esque, in my opinion. And so for me, I think she would at the New York Pro. I think she would probably have to tighten up a little bit more because Dana Lynn comes in such great condition, and I think that would, when you stand them next to each other, you're going to see some of those kinds of things will stand right out to you right away. That Dana's going to be a lot harder, and she's going to, and the imperfections in Juliana's physique will start to show a little bit more when you do that kind of thing. But I don't know if that's really. I don't really think that the type of physique that Juliana has in terms of the sheer muscularity that she has is what women's physique really is all about. She's just really almost at that bodybuilder side of things, in my opinion. I think she could easily go and compete in bodybuilding and do very well. She's got a beautiful physique, but for women's physique, I think Dana Lynn Bailey encapsulates that a bit better, not only just from a marketing standpoint and from a sellability standpoint, but also from a physique standpoint as well.
All right, Chris, we're going to go back over to you. So Tad mentions Dana Lynn Bailey, of course, had a sensational 2013, taking first at the Olympia weekend, Dallas Europa Super Show. Is this more a byproduct of her just being hot right now? And do you see that, again, game of comparison, do you see this as Dana Lynn Bailey's show to lose?
Yeah, I mean, it's her show to lose only because she's the winner. She's the person they have deemed, number one. But, I don't think that, personally, that marketability should have any, role in who should win and not win shows. I mean, otherwise, what do you do with Kai Green as Mr. Olympia? I mean, he's a great speaker at times, in certain venues, but, he's not. It just nothing negative about Kai. It just I really stumble and I find it difficult to deal with having someone factoring in marketability in terms of being a champion in any sport, because it is a sport at the end of the day, and I wouldn't want to be losing and having someone come up to me as a bodybuilder, as a bikini girl, as a woman's figure or physique and say, well, so-and-so is a little bit more marketable than you, so maybe that's why he or she got the edge.
Tal, we go back over to you again. Juliana did take first at the New York Pro. Is marketability a big thing here? Is it really that strong of a pull that really makes Dana Lynn Bailey even that much more the favorite here?
Well, I think for a title like the Olympia, absolutely is, because and when I talk about marketability, what I'm talking about is this person is a representative of the sport, of that particular division of the sport, and that's really important because that sets a standard for future competitors, for the current contemporary competitors, as well as the industry as a whole. And at the core of it, it's a sport, but it's also a business, and so it has to be treated that way. If it's still going to be around tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. And so who you select as your champions need to deserve it, but they also have to have other qualities as well. They can't just be somebody who has a great physique. They have to be somebody who has a great physique with a mixture of other things that make a formula to create success within the sport. Arnold Schwarzenegger is a fantastic example. Not the best physique in my opinion, but as a matter of fact, if you go back and look at he probably lost to Mike Minzer, he probably lost to several other people, but he ended up winning because he was a great ambassador for the sport. He sold the sport much better than anybody else did in the history of bodybuilding. So from a standpoint of sellability and marketability, it's absolutely important, but you have to combine it with a great physique. You just can't have somebody that can sell the sport, but obviously you have to have somebody that has a great physique, and I think Dana Lynn Bailey Bailey does have a great physique, and she does represent the sport well, and she does have great marketability. But at the same time, she has that kind of that special charisma that other athletes just don't have. And I have yet to be able, sometimes you just can't put your finger on it. And that kind of charisma she's got, and that is what I'm talking about in this arena of marketability, is this ability to captivate people, this ability to draw other new competitors into that sport and to make them want to do it as well.
So Juliana Malcarney, despite her recent success, both competitors are saying that, well, Dana Lynn Bailey has the edge with not only the physique, not only the charisma, but the marketability. Let's go to Dave Palumbo for the final word.
I know I'm going to make Chris laugh when I say this, but we talk about marketability. Probably the guy who gives the best interview of anyone in the entire sport of bodybuilding is Gabe Moen. And probably no one even knows who he is. Half the people who are listening probably don't know who he is. But that doesn't mean he should be Mr. Olympia. So I have to err on the side with Chris said, which is marketability really shouldn't play into who has the best physique, especially in bodybuilding. But it does, unfortunately. And the problem is that Dana Lynn Bailey has been defined as Miss Olympia now. So the history of bodybuilding that I've seen from way back to when Larry Scott won in 1965 was that if you don't knock off the Olympia champ, they don't usually lose. So I think the only way that Juliana can win, because I think she has the physique to win, would be if Dana Lynn Bailey was not at her best. And I really don't see that happening, unless something, unless she gets food poisoning or something like that, or George, does something extreme to her and screws her up. But, assuming Dana comes in at her best, I don't think she loses. And I think that because of the fact she is the Miss Olympia, that's going to happen. So to answer the question, can Juliana Malcarney win the Olympia? Probably not, just from a political standpoint. From a physique standpoint, she probably should be Miss Olympia. Did I like her look last year where she was a little more muscular? From a bodybuilding fan perspective, I did. I think she's got a better women's physique this year, especially what we saw at the Dallas show and at New York. I think it's going to be a battle for certain. I actually would hesitate to even say that it's probably going to be a 1-2 battle between the two of those girls. Will they let her win? Not if Dana's off. Not if Dana's at her best. And I think that we'll probably see a repeat for Dana.
All right, so it seems like everybody's on board saying that this is Dana Lynn Bailey's world. It's still her contest to lose. You're watching Iron Debate RX TV on RxMuscle.com. This is a new addition to the RX TV lineup, and we're glad to have you aboard. We now move on to our next subject. Now, Dave did mention Mr. Olympia, the Olympia competition. We now talk about an Olympia legend. And we're talking about no other than Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler, 4-time Mr. Olympia, last won in 2010. He's 40 now, 40 years old, and there are some whispers now wondering whether or not he is going to continue to compete and continue to compete at a high level. We're going to start off with Chris. Chris, Jay Cutler, should he still be competing, and do you still see him as a viable top-end competitor at this age?
I see him as if Jay Cutler wants to be a major threat to win the Mr. Olympia, he can be a major threat, even at 40, even with quote injuries. It's just I think that to do that, he would need to shut down his travel schedule. I know he's travels every single weekend, and I know last year was extensive travel with the BPI Jay Cutler line and the truck and all that. But there's some, I know people would probably scoff at that, and but I think I know Jay Cutler and probably better than anyone. I feel. And if he sets his mind to something, he's going to accomplish it. So, of course, the decision would be his decision, but I think it's something that he could pull off. That's not meaning competitive. That means threat to win any show, including the Mr. Olympia.
All right, so Chris still has faith that if Jay Cutler were to maybe clear out some of the other things, despite his age, despite the quote-unquote injuries, he can still compete, and he can still compete at the highest level. Tad, your thoughts. At age 40, can the 4-time Mr. Olympia still compete at the highest level, and should he?
Well, he certainly could, and 40 is not that old because my birthday is in exactly a week from now, and I'll be 44. So I know that's not that old, and I'm still competing. Should he retire? Yeah, I mean, I think this is a good time for him to retire. I mean, if he wants, and this is. This is something that I think every athlete has to go through at some point in their life. They have to ask themselves, have they done everything they can do in their sport? And as you can tell, I have not. So that's why I'm still competing. And once I do, you'll see me stop. But and Jay, I think, has done just about everything he needs to do as an athlete, as a competitive athlete in the sport. And I don't think he has anything left to prove to anybody. He's still a very popular ambassador, and he's a really, really nice fella. And I don't think he has anything else he has to do. And I think actually. For him, I think more than likely, because I know it happened to me at the age of 40, your concerns start turning towards things like overall health and longevity and things like that. And I think that the sport takes its toll on the body, not only all the intensive training and all that stuff, but it definitely takes its toll. And I don't know if he really wants to probably put himself through that for too many more years. So I think this is probably a great time to go out when you're on top, when people still love you and everything is still wonderful and you can still get all the big deals and all that stuff. So this is a good time.
Chris, Tad does bring up another angle to it, the fact that he is at the top of the game right now. He is on the Mount Rushmore for bodybuilding at this point in time, but he is bigger than just a bodybuilder. He is someone who has his own brand, he has his own line, he has really so many marketing opportunities. How much does that factor into what he plans on doing in the short term and really where he sees himself in the next 5 years?
Well, he could win the Olympia this year if you use the same standard as Dana Lynn Bailey having the marketability, edge, right? I guess the summation of the argument or to the debate is, if it's can Jay, win an Olympia or an Arnold Classic, I say yes. If the question is should he, knowing how busy he is, I would say no, simply because I do agree with Tad that, how many Olympias do you have to win to be satisfied? How many, in real estate, how many buildings do you need to say like, okay, I'm in real estate? So it's the same, it's the same thing. So I think obviously Jay's accomplished more than probably anyone's ever accomplished in bodybuilding. If you take it as a whole and look at it from a wider perspective. It's fun to knock around, but I haven't heard any whispers really about him competing.
So let's go back to Tad. Tad, I'm just going to ask you very flat out. At this age 40, and again, I keep saying age, I mean that lightly, but considering what he's accomplished over the course of his illustrious career, last time he won it was in 2010, 4 years later, 2014. Can Jay Cutler still be Mr. Olympia?
Can he still be Mr. Olympia? In my personal opinion, I don't think that he can. I don't think that he would be able to beat Phil at this level. I think Phil's he's moving farther and farther away from the pack in terms of his physique. I don't think that he can. I think that he can be a contender. I think that he'd always be popular. I think he can always make a good presence at the Olympia, but I don't think that he can actually win the Olympia. There's always that possibility, but I don't. If everyone's at their best and all's equal, so to speak, then no, absolutely not.
All right, so both Chris and Tad still seem to be in awe of Jay Cutler's overall game in terms of what he is, what he means to the sport, and really beyond just the sport. Neither think he can still win the Olympia. We now go to Dave Palumbo for the final word. Dave, do you still see Jay Cutler as a top-end competitor, and can he still win the Olympia?
I know what Chris is saying because Jay's got that crazy mindset that if he puts his mind to do something, he can do it. I don't think physically his body can respond the way it used to anymore. I think he's got injuries. I think it would be a lot harder for him to get back to where he was than, say, when he was 36 years old and he did it and made that comeback. I think he's done. And I also think it's basically there's no reason for him to come back. We said it before. He's won 4 Olympias already. I always said that when I would retire when I couldn't be better than my best, and Jay can never be better than his best at this point. I think even Chris wouldn't argue with that. So I think it's wise for Jay to just bow out now. On top, he's on top of every aspect of bodybuilding, as far as whether it be the Olympia, business, the supplement world. He's got it all. So there's no reason to risk his health. And Tad, just a message to you: you should retire too. You're too old. Keep the coaching up. There's no reason to be getting on stage anymore. You're nuts. You got your health. You got a beautiful family. And I think at some point that us bodybuilders we don't want to give up. We don't want to stop. And we want to try one more. And at this point, I don't think there's any benefit. And even some of these guys I see competing in their late 40s, Tony Freeman. At this point, Tony's got nothing to prove. I know he's making money, but what are the ramifications long-term of subjecting your body to the contest diet and all the rigors of having to gain that kind of weight and put your body through all the supplements? So can Jay win? No. Do I think it's a good idea for him to try? Absolutely not.
All right, so Dave seems to err on the side of his better days may be behind him, but he means so much to the sport, has had such a decorated career, and if he were to retire now, he would certainly go out on top. Our next topic of discussion, talking about the Olympia, Big Ramy. Is he ready to make his mark? Is this his time? We haven't seen really recently anybody with that size and that combination of sheer size and shape. Is this Big Ramy's time to finally win the Olympia and make his indelible mark on the bodybuilding industry? You're going to find out the answer to that and more after this commercial break. We have one topic to go. Big Ramy, is this his time? Chris, Tad, and Dave will answer that question. This is the Iron Debate on RX TV on RxMuscle.com.
This is IFBB Figure Pro Heather Dees, and you are watching RX Television.
Hi, I'm Andrea Holiday, and I'm an IFBB Women's Physique Pro, but I'm also a coach and a trainer. When clients come to me for advice, I make it my business to give them the most intelligent solutions to all their problems. And I base that information on each person's specific goals. As an elite level competitor, my goal is to gain high quality muscle while maintaining a lean, ripped physique. Species Nutrition's Isolate is the purest whey isolate on the market. It has no fat, no carbs, and it tastes outrageously great. My personal favorite is chocolate peanut butter. So next time you purchase the protein shake, remember, buy the best, buy Isolate.
We got a nice little care package from Quest Nutrition.
There better be some apple pie in this. I'm taking apple pie at all of them.
All right, what up? It's Gilbert Inoue Melendez, chilling with my Quest bar here. First and foremost, most importantly, they're delicious. But it's good to have a good protein bar before training. Gluten-free, you gotta love it. And it tastes good, and it feels like it's doing the trick. I listen to my body, and it says yes to this, so give it a shot.
They taste great. They're awesome. They allow me to feel like I have a little treat while I'm still eating real strict for my training camp and everything. So I'm super excited. Off the top of my head, I have to say the cinnamon roll, the apple pie, and probably the lemon. But I haven't had one yet that I don't like.
Welcome back inside the RxMuscle studios. This is the Iron Debate. You love that, don't you? I'm your host, Siddique Farooqi, joined by Chris Aceto, Tad Inoue, and Dave Palumbo, the founder of RxMuscle. We have one topic to go, and it is a topic a lot of people are talking about a man who the bodybuilding world has been fascinated by ever since he broke onto the stage. He is a man of mystery. He comes from Egypt. His name is Big Ramy. It's not his real name, but that's what everybody calls him. Big Ramy. Now the question, as we approach the Olympia, can he finally win it? Can he finally become Mr. Olympia? And in the process, can he dethrone Phil Heath? We're going to go to Chris. Chris, can Big Ramy win the big one this summer?
Not this summer. And the reason why I say that, and I'm a big fan of Big Ramy, and I'm not a big fan of Phil Heath, but I'm kidding. He's the thing about Phil, and the reason I think he'll repeat is that he's in a better position than Ramy. When you become Mr. Olympia, you have to remember a lot of bodybuilders, just like all athletes, there's always some level of insecurity and anxiety of, am I going to peak on time? Am I going to be at my best? What if I don't get tight enough? And all these type of things. And one thing that we know about Phil Heath is that not only does he show up at the Olympia in shape, he's better every year when we don't expect him to improve. And so I think Phil has a strong advantage of being Mr. Olympia. He's been there before. He can handle the pressure. The anxiety's not going to be there. He's motivated to win again. He's not dumb. He obviously knows that Big Ramy is, and Kai Green and the whole gang, Roden, blah, 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 Wolf, they're chasing him down. And, I'm sure he uses that as nothing more than motivation in a good way. So, whereas I think Ramy is going to run through his head again. What if I get eighth again? What if he had a lot of hype going into the show last year. And the fact was that as crazy big as he was in prejudging, he was just too heavy, which means that he didn't have the level of crisp condition, crazy quality that he needs to highlight his physique. And he didn't have it in New York this year, and he didn't have it last year in terms of crazy, Phil Heath-like tie-ins. So although I think he can certainly be Mr. Olympia, I think he's working from a point of disadvantage, and Phil is working from he's got leverage of being Mr. Olympia and starting from a point of having the advantage of that and having the eye of the tiger. So I think it's not going to happen this year.
Of our followers tweeting at us asking really what is Big Ramy's real name. It is Mamdou El Subhai, comes from Egypt. So Chris seems to think that at some point, yes, he will be Mr. Olympia, but not this year. Tad, the diet coach, we're going to go back over to you now. Is this Big Ramy's time? Will he win the Olympia this summer?
Well, that's yet to be seen, but I have to say that he has it within him to do it. I just think that he needs little more time to mature his physique a little bit more and get that crisp look on stage. I think that him and DJ are still trying to figure out what's going to make him look the best. That's what I think, to be honest. And I think that right now he's just out-muscling everybody. And can he win the Olympia this year by just out-muscling Phil? No, I don't think he can. But will he? You never know. I mean, I think the sport really likes him, and he seems to get a lot of attention. And who knows what he'll look like. I think that he is willing to do just about whatever he needs to do to be a champion. And I think just that alone, I would say that he absolutely could have a possibility of winning this year's Miss Olympia, based just on that, because I know that the power of will can sometimes be more greater than anything else. So I think that he absolutely has the ability to do it. Will he? We'll see. He is still pretty young in the sport, and he is still pretty young as a bodybuilder. And like I said, him and DJ are trying to. I think they're still trying to figure out how to make him look the best on stage. Right now, he's simply out-muscling people, in my opinion.
When you think about Big Ramy, and again, just that name, Big. He weighed in a couple of days ago at 319 pounds. Chris, I'm going to go back over to you. When you consider the profile of a Big Ramy, 319 pounds, yet he has this incredible shape, who can you compare him to in this industry, someone we've seen in the past, or have we never seen anyone like this before, someone with that combination, that rare combination of freak size and shape?
Well, he's a combo. I told Dave this in New York. He reminds me of a lot of Jay when Jay was young, where he's just way bigger than people, like in terms of width, and then gigantic legs. But at the same time, he reminds me to some degree of Nasser. I mean, Nasser was freaky huge, crazy. The only thing that Nasser had, quote, weak was the back double bicep, which was at certain times, a good shot for him. So, I mean, you can't say that Nasser was not a total crazy, wacky looking freak. He was. And Ramy is, kind of that same way, where he's has the ability to overwhelm people. Look, at the New York Pro, he was not in great condition by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, close your eyes, think of his condition, and then close your eyes and think of like either Kai over in Prague or Phil at the Olympia, and it's not even close. But he's you just said it. He's 319. Not these guys. I'm 319 when they're 285 and they still got 40 pounds of fat to lose. He's really crazy big, and I think at the Olympia, if he can hold that crazy bigness and just be more separated, and a little bit better condition, he might. He's gonna beat one of these, two or maybe three of these guys. I don't think he's gonna beat Phil, but he might. He's gonna overwhelm, some people. I mean, I'll give you the litmus test: is close your eyes and think of his back lat spread and back double or most muscular side chest versus Wolf. Wolf is a big hype right now, and he just came off one in the Arnold, and he's supposed to be huge. I don't think he's got any of this. He's not in the same category of hugeness as Ramy.
So, of course, Chris comparing Big Ramy to the late Nasser Al-Somebody. And you also consider Tad, as we go back over to you. Chris did mention that Big Ramy wasn't 100% at the New York Pro Show. Of course, winning again, back-to-back New York Pro Championships. He had an upper respiratory infection. So despite being slowed down, he won rather comfortably. What does that say about, again, the ability now to recover, the chance to now recover over the next few weeks leading into the Olympia, but now more so looking at his future and compared to, I guess, the career trajectory, that of a Phil Heath and a Kai Green?
Well, looking at the New York Pro, and I was there, and he definitely overwhelmed some of the competition, with sheer size. What does that say moving forward? Well, he needs to definitely be in tighter condition, and I think like somebody like Juan Morel, who showed up there just absolutely peeled, and still get second place. And it was in my opinion, it was relatively close, closer than probably people thought. But he's going to have to do a lot more to be able to stand up next to guys like Kai Green, who when he shows up in shape, or Dennis Wolf, or or Phil Heath. I mean, it's a wholly different caliber between guys like Juan Morel and John De La Rosa who are new guys sort of coming up, really figuring out what's what's the magic formula for them to look great at shows, and guys who have shown up over and over and over looking fantastic. Guys like Phil Heath and Kai Green and Dennis Wolf, who seems to have gotten all of his pieces of the puzzle right for him now. So I think it's a different, all those flaws, all that lack of conditioning that Chris talked about that Ramy has right now, that he's still fighting at some of these shows, will become more prevalent when you got guys like Kai Green and Dennis Wolf and Phil Heath staying up next to him, and Dexter Jackson standing up next to him, who are always in great shape, generally speaking, at the Olympia, and when they're all in the same lineup. So I think it'll be a different story.
So clearly this is going to be one of the fascinating storylines all summer, all season, and really for the next few years to come. Big Ramy, will he win this Mr. Olympia, and really what are his prospects as someone who has garnered so many of the storylines and headlines in this industry? We go back over now to Dave Palumbo, the final word on Big Ramy's prospects in the Mr. Olympia for 2014, and really what can we expect out of him in the next few years, given all the fascination and all the storylines?
Well, the question really is, who can't Ramy beat? Chris and I discussed this multiple times. Ramy at New York show shape can probably beat almost everyone in the Olympia lineup, with the exception of Phil Heath, Kai Green, and maybe Dennis Wolf. I think he might take out Sean Roden just on sheer size, even though Sean probably will bring spectacular conditioning. So Ramy's got to beat three guys basically, and he's not even at his best. Okay, now if he gets to his best, now the question is, can he get to his best? I guess is a better question. Dennis James has been helping Big Ramy, but Big Ramy's been living in Kuwait, so he really hasn't had full-time I guess you could say intervention into Ramy's preparation. Now Ramy's living, I think, with Dennis, and I think he's moving out there with his whole family to make a full-time commitment to the sport, living in the U.S., going to be training with Dennis James. So the question now remains, is Dennis James the guy to lead him to the promised land, to the Mr. Olympia title? If the question is yes, if Dennis knows enough to be able to manipulate Ramy's physique to look his best, he definitely can win the Mr. Olympia this year. Because if Ramy shows up at his best, no one beats this guy. And I think the only guy who could even stand next to him is Kai Green. So I think that Ramy can win the Olympia this year. And, Kai Green is notoriously slips up at the Olympia and comes in off. Phil is definitely beatable on sheer size and shape that Ramy has. Can Ramy get the conditioning of a Phil Heath? I think he can. Will he do it this year? Who knows? But I think the fact that he is giving a full-time commitment to live with Dennis, as long as Dennis doesn't, get scared and afraid that he's going to bring Ramy into small, and he holds him back from getting to his peak, I think Ramy can win the Olympia this year.
Dave, I'm going to go right back to you again, bringing up just the fact that he weighed in at 319 just a couple of days ago. Who does he remind you of?
I don't think Ramy reminds me of anyone. I guess you could say he's a modern-day Nasser El somebody, but he's got better shape. He's got a smaller waist. So he's like no one we've ever seen before. You can't even compare him to Ronnie Coleman, really, because they have different physiques. But Ramy's an entity in and of himself. I mean, Dennis James told me personally that this guy doesn't even eat that much, and he just grows. He is, the definition of a true mutant or freak, and that's a compliment in every sense of the word in the bodybuilding world. And I think that Ramy eventually will be Mr. Olympia one day, and I think that once he wins it once, he'll win it, multiple times. If his body holds up and he doesn't get injured, he might win it 10, 12 times. Who the hell knows? The guy's only 29 years of age.
So we're going to have a little bonus question here for both Tad and Chris. Tad, we're going to start with you. How would you compare Big Ramy to Ronnie Coleman? We talked about the career trajectory, and even if he doesn't win the Olympia this upcoming summer, he's one of the sport's most promising prospects, a specimen that is rare in his form with his size and his shape. How do you compare him to a younger Ronnie Coleman?
Well, from a physique standpoint, it's really difficult because they have such different physiques. I'd say that Ronnie Coleman was always known for being. I mean, he was always like in really diamond cutting shape. I mean, he was just so tight and very dry looking, and at his best. And just one of the best back double biceps I've ever seen with striated glutes. So very difficult, very strong. He liked training heavy and these kinds of things. Rami is almost the polar opposite in terms of his training. I know DJ's got him doing some different things, very super slow training methods, and lots of machine work and cables and stuff like that, which is fine. But he doesn't come in, he's just sheer size and not necessarily known for conditioning. So they're on the same continuum, but on opposite sides of the continuum, so to speak, in terms of conditioning and in terms of, but they both exist on this plane of super hugeness, if you will. They both exist on this plane where there's only a few bodybuilders who been able to get on stage at this upper toward the 300-pound range and look good and be able to win. And he is one of them. So in that sense, I would say they're comparable. But in my mind, Rami definitely, as Dave said, is a completely different entity than we've ever seen before. And it'll be really interesting to see how it plays out down the road, because he'll be such a unique kind of champion. And if he's able to capture the Olympia crown, then it'll be interesting to see how he represents that and what that means to the sport and how the fans embrace him for it and so forth. So it's be exciting nonetheless. So.
Chris, let's get your thoughts on it. Dave, of course, said that Big Ramy reminds him of no one that we have seen to this point. But again, the question is, do you see or any comparison between Big Ramy and a younger Ronnie Coleman in his prime?
I mean, it's crazy. It's a great question because Ronnie Coleman in his prime had a side chest. You can Google the pictures. Will never be duplicated as far as I'm concerned. And a back double bicep that destroyed the competition at certain competitions, and he had the most muscular. I just to this day I'm tremendously impressed with Ronnie Coleman, what he accomplished with his body and bodybuilding, and I think Ramy, while being huge and extremely impressive and all those things, he's got a long ways to go to attain the level of just crazy maturity in the muscle that Ronnie had. While you can compare them on body weights, and I think that's why one of the reasons why we're comparing them, I don't think you can compare them right now based on true muscularity when you encompass muscle detail and muscle condition.
So that's going to do it for the debate portion of our show. It is now time to get the final thoughts, the closing remarks. It is time for Iron Debates FaceTime. We are going to start with Chris. Chris, FaceTime, go.
What am I doing here, bro?
We want a 30, 60-second rant out of you.
Okay, that's what else I need.
So let's go.
One of the, my rant is bodybuilders who want to be Instagram and Facebook bodybuilders. Mike Francois said it best, in an interview with Dave recently on the radio show, that back in the day, there were none of these things, and people just worked their ass off and showed up at bodybuilding shows and shocked the world. Kevin Levrone did it. Paul DeMeo sort of did it. Mike Francois did it. Dorian did it. And now, you can follow people taking their first piss of the day 3 days out. And it's just ridiculous, really. I know the fans love it, but I think what's the problem is that people get, the competitors themselves, sucked up into the social media. Becoming a great bodybuilder is about focus. And frankly, to me, social media takes the focus off what you're trying to accomplish. If you want to, hit grand slams in real estate, you don't go around. There's not even an analogy needed. It's just it's hoopla and it's getting ridiculous.
All right, so Chris clearly taking on the Facebook Instagram builder. You know the type. You go to the gym and you can't complete your workout without lifting up your shirt and showing off the world what you got down there. We're going to go over now to Tad, the diet coach, for your FaceTime.
Well, for me, I say that I want to stop hearing competitors complain if they don't get the placing that they want. When you go to a show and you compete, this is a sport. Nobody said it was going to be fair. Nobody said that you were going to get what you wanted. Nobody said just because you worked really hard, you were going to get a first place trophy or you were going to win something. It just meant that, sometimes the best that you can hope for is that you looked great. And I think that people need to find the kind of real value out of this sport intrinsically instead of in a trophy or in a title. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for everybody winning, but I don't think it should be the overriding only thing that you should be seeking in this sport. And for goodness sake, don't complain when you don't get what you want. That's to me, that screams of a life of entitlement.
So clearly Tad is against my youth soccer coach used to give us a trophy for just existing. For our final FaceTime, we go back over to the boss, Dave Palumbo.
My topic, I guess, for today is I received an email from someone who called me an ageist. Not a racist, an ageist. He said that I was prejudiced against people who want to compete at an older age. And here's my answer to him. What I said was I'm not against age categories in the amateur ranks of the NPC. I think that's great. They have 40 and over, they have 35 and over, 40 and over, 50 and over, 60 and over, 70 and over. They even have 80 and over at the Masters Nationals. I think it's great. I applaud it. I watch it. I love it. It's great. I like giving accolades to that. At the professional level, at the IFBB professional elite level, these are the best competitors in the world in every division, whether it be bodybuilding, fitness, bikini. I don't think there should be qualifications in those divisions. I don't mind a weight division, like in bodybuilding they have men's 212 and men's open. I'm talking about an age qualification. I think it's just unnecessary. I want to see the best guys in the world compete. I don't want to see 60-year-old wrinkly women in a bikini on stage. It's just not. It doesn't do justice to our sport. We're the best in the IFBB. We want to see the best physiques. And when you're not the best anymore, guess what? You retire and you get out. And you start your own supplement line. You become a broadcaster. You do whatever you like. You could pick your nose for all I care. You shouldn't be up on stage, at less than your best. And if you want to compete with the open people. It's cool every once in a while to watch the Masters, Mr. Olympia, where you see some of the older guys come up there. But at the same time, and I think even most people will agree with me, it's a little depressing sometimes when you see these guys not at their best anymore. So I'm sorry. If you think I'm an ageist, I guess I'm an ageist. In the IFBB pro ranks, there should be no age categories.
Well, Dave clearly wants to see the best of the best, and you all learn a new word today, ageist. That's going to do it for the first edition of the Iron Debate. Special thanks to our producer, director, Johnny Styles, who did a phenomenal job for us this evening, and to Chris, the technician, Aceto, Tad, the diet coach, Inoue. We're going to be back next week better than ever. I'm Siddique Farooqi, reminding you that you're going to miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, RxMuscle.com. Have a good night.